1-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Well, a 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Episode 25, the Say Hello podcast. My name is Casey Lynn. I am joined by my co-host, Bill Pulsifer, former Major League pitcher, as we are entering already episode 25. Before we get going, this episode is brought to you by roots-recordings.com. Of course, like always, we have Stephen White behind the scenes as a producer doing a great job. And seems like forever ago, but it also feels like yesterday, Bill. Doc Gooden was our guest. And before we talk about last episode of Doc quickly, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Episode 25 is my my other number I wore as a New York Met.
You beat me to it. You knew it was that. I was gonna. All right, but before we get into Doc,
don't ask me to name other 25s.
I'm gonna read. I was gonna ask you. You beat me to it. You know me well by now.
Yeah.
So Bill wore 20. This is episode 25. Bill spoiled the fun. He wore number 25, and you tell me the year. I know it. You remember?
2000.
Yep.
2000. I got traded back in lefty Bobby Jones. I gave him 21.
Okay.
He came from Colorado that year.
Yes, he did. I remember that well. Do you remember who had that number right that you kind of took from? I guess you didn't really take it from, but who had it before you? Right before you?
I don't.
Bobby Bonilla.
Bobby Bo.
In 99.
There you go.
His second
Bobby
tenure.
Bo was a good teammate. Bobby Bo, good guy. I know
And
he got a little rough around the edges outside of the clubhouse, but inside the clubhouse, he was a good teammate, good guy.
If you actually, Met fans, if you're listening or watching, go to his Baseball America page. He had a great tenure with the Mets offensively. Like, he put up good numbers. So, outside ruffle, whatever. But he was a good player for the Mets.
He was a good player. Think about it, too. He was the highest paid player in the major leagues at $6 million a year.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
Haven't we, though? Okay.
Yeah. Other players, real quick. Frank Thomas, 62 Mets. He wore it. Danny Heap, Keith Miller. First tenure Bonilla, 92 to 95. Jay Payton in 98.
Right.
And then, like we just mentioned, Bonilla, 99. Pulsifer in 2000. And then we go to recent Kaz Matsui, the late Pedro Feliciano, the lefty.
God, rest in peace, yeah.
Great Met, lefty out of the bullpen.
Good guy, too. Really good guy.
Yeah, gone too soon. And then right now, Brooks Raley is wearing number 25.
Oh, another lefty. Good. Awesome.
Yeah. So a lot of lefties in there.
Yeah. Cool.
So let's talk about last episode real quick, because I'd be remiss if we didn't. Anyone out there listening or watching here on the Say Hello podcast, first, please hit that subscribe button. Like, share, subscribe. All you got to do is click. It's free. We appreciate it. We got a lot of announcements coming up that I'll hold off for now, as much as I'd love to tell everybody. But if you're listening and you haven't listened to it or watched it, see Shay_hello on Twitter X. It's the pinned tweet. You can listen to that episode 24. We had Doc Gooden on, Bill. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Unheard stories, fascinating tales. What were your thoughts of your buddy?
Well, I think the first and foremost was the stories that we got to hear that you don't hear on a regular basis, and from the horse's mouth, his experiences. Obviously, a lot of people like to dwell about the what ifs with Doc, but I like to dream and believe in the greatness that was, and people got to see how engaging he was and how willing he was to tell stories that are inside stories. And I thought it was just I thought he did a fantastic job. I thought you did a fantastic job with the questioning, and I felt like he had a good job. And I got a lot of positive feedback from the people I know that listened to it.
Yeah.
A lot of Mets fantasy camp guys telling me how much they really enjoyed it. So it was a blast.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. He was open, honest, articulate, sharp, great stories. He's a great storyteller. And I also got a lot of great feedback on just everything all around. And I appreciate Doc saying how comfortable he was on the podcast and how welcomed we made him feel because, as you've always said, Doc has seen it all in terms of interviews over 40 years. So, to hear that from the legend Doc Gooden was kind of cool.
To me,
So,
part of what made it so special to me is because I've had to tell the Bill Pulsford story, the Jen K story, so many times over and over and over again, and it gets tiring. It's something I don't want to relive through these stories anymore. We've all already heard it. I'm sure he probably has felt the same way at some point in time. So to hear him to be able to tell stories that he doesn't usually get to tell, I think that he really enjoyed that, and we obviously really really enjoyed listening.
yeah, no, he's a guy that for me personally, was worth all the homework, and diving well deep into that career, which is a long one, to hear some stories that are unheard. So I had a great time, and you look like I told you a kid in the candy store.
I really was, and it was fantastic. And I love that he said that thanks for making him comfortable. And I love that he gave you the props for the research that you did about the questioning. So I thought that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, and while we're at it, that was our first guest after 24 episodes. Not going to announce who is coming on our podcast in the future, but I will tell you we have a couple guys that will be coming on, and I'm going to just reiterate: hit that subscribe button because I just put on Shay_Hello. The first 350 subscribers were about 290 in, which is a good number for the amount of time we've been on. We'll have the first crack of asking these guys a question live on the air, just like we did with Doc. And trust me, without giving out the name, because I can't right now, you're going to want to have that first crack of asking questions. So hit that subscribe button, Say Hello Media on YouTube, and follow us, Shay_Hello, because trust me, once we announce these names, you're going to want to get in. So, yeah, that was cool about Doc, but we have to move on from the legend. He'll have his number retired April 14th. And are you going, by the way?
I haven't solidified the plans yet, but I'm definitely making sure that I'm going to be there for that for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to go to. And April, hopefully the weather holds up.
That's
as well.
what I'm hoping for, a nice day.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully Doc gets a nice day and all the fans get a nice day.
Yeah, and it was really cool as we keep talking about Doc, how he said, he's bringing Gary Carter's wife out, and he really has a connection with Met fans. So I love that.
Once a Met, always a Met, man. It's special, and that people. We don't just say that as former players. We mean it. We really mean it.
Perfect way to go into. Hey guys, baseball's back. It is. Spring training, pitchers and catchers have reported, and the crack of the bat, the smell of the grass, it's all there. We're back. The off season is in the rearview mirror, kind of. We'll get into that a little bit later with a couple free agents still available. But as for the Mets, pitchers and catchers have reported. The full squad is the weekend of the 17th for their first full squad workout. So basically, my point, Bill, off-season is over. We made it. And here we are, 2024 campaign. That's exciting. Unofficial start of baseball to me is the unofficial start of spring. So I'm a kid in the candy store every time this happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is you look for that turn in the weather, and you look for your favorite sport to be back on. You made it through the football season, and I mean, I enjoy watching football and all that, but I know that I enjoy sitting down every night when I get a chance to to watch the ball games when the ball games come back around. So means we're that much more closer to it. And as a former player, it's so crazy. And I actually took a quick little nap not too long ago. I start having dreams, pitching dreams. Still to this day, I'm 50 years old. I stopped playing at 37. And it never fails this time of year. I start having dreams about being on the field or being in the clubhouse. And a lot of times it's kind of scary dreams because I can't find my locker or I can't find my uniform or I can't get my uniform tied back up. But it's just so crazy how every year around this time the baseball dreams start to kick in even to this day.
Wow, that is amazing. It's psychology 101. I would love to, I get it. So yeah,
I've had this conversation with a few other former players, and I thought, am I the only one? And no, I'm not the only one. So and they've been coming for the past week. So my body kind of knows, or my brain knows that it's baseball time.
Our heads, our brains, I should say, are computers. So half more than half your life, you're a baseball player, spring training or spring baseball. This I get it, fascinating.
Yep.
So
it's crazy.
Perfect time to ask you specifically. It's not about a mailbag question. It's a question that I'm actually wondering. As a former pitcher, around this time, let's take the dreams out for a second, which is still fascinating to me. A couple questions. As someone who knows they're making the team, as you've been there, and also as someone for spring training trying to break the roster who might be on the bubble, how do you approach things on both ends?
Well, I've been in both situations. Obviously, you prefer the one where you kind of know that you're penciled in or penned in, hopefully, where you can just kind of look. You're not taking it easy, and because your job is still on the line, but you know that you can kind of ease your way into spring training. And if you have a bad outing, or if you have a bad live batting practice, or if you're a little bit wild early on, or a certain pitch isn't coming, it's not the end of the world. You know that you have time to work on it, and the coaches will say as such. To remind you of that, because as competitors, we definitely want to always try to be our very best. And so it's a lot easier to go into spring training knowing that you have a slot, whether it's in the bullpen or whether it's in the starting staff, and you're just getting your work in. Like we like to say, I was just getting my work in today.
Yeah.
Or I was just, that's a great thing, and it's a great feeling to be that guy. On the other hand, as a guy that's going in trying to make a club. It's stressful every single day. And you know that every single foot you put forward, you're trying to impress the organization. You're trying to impress the other players. You're trying to fit in with the other players. You obviously, every bullpen, you got to be as sharp as you possibly can. Hopefully you show up with all of your pitches already ready and already sharp. I know that it's kind of crazy how they do things, and I'm not sure if it's different now because it's been a while, but usually you go into spring training, you've already thrown enough bullpens where you're throwing breaking balls and off-speed pitches and all that. And then you get into camp, and it's the first week we go back to just fastballs only. Yeah, so as the guy who is looking to win that job, you're there first thing in the morning, first guy there, last guy to leave, just and putting your best foot forward. You gotta prove from day one to the last day of spring training that you belong on a roster.
Yeah, there's it's common sense. If you have a roster locked in, you're more comfortable, and like you said, you work on things. If not, obviously more pressure. So that leads us to right into the Metville in Port St. Lucie right now. I had a question. I guess I'll just go right into it because it's kind of like what we just talked about. I wrote about this for the Shay Hello Media newsletter. If you go to our LinkedIn on any of our social media platforms, Shay Hello Media on Instagram, Shay_Hello on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it these days.
Formerly known as.
Exactly. Click the link tree, hit newsletter. It's free. I wrote a long article on this, Bill. I don't know if you're subscribed, but I could easily find out. It's free. And I wrote a long article about what, and Bill and I have talked about this until the cows come home, what a lot of ifs have to go right for the Mets to have a good year. So basically, I wrote this article about those ifs. And so the question that I have for you, and I'll answer as well, what players, it doesn't have to be X amount of players, whoever comes to mind, pitchers, position players, in your mind, are the ones that are vital, that they have to have that if it goes right season for the Mets to be competitive and have a chance to get a wild card spot. I know my players. Do you have any guys in mind?
Well, I mean, obviously, I would say that the top guys all have to really do their thing, and if not better than last year, which is you want that to happen every single year. So obviously, Pete and Nimmo and Lindor and Senga, they have to really, really hold their own, if not even come above and beyond a little bit than even 2 years ago, let's say, where they all had tremendous years. Obviously, Senga wasn't around yet,
Right.
but I think that 3 names that I could pull out that I feel like need to really, really show that they belong and show improvement, it would be Beatty, Vientos, and DJ Stewart.
Ooh.
Obviously, big roles they're going to play. If I had to throw another one out there, we need to see Marte of 2 years ago. Hopefully, a healthy Marte. I think he changes the whole dynamic of the team. And then some unproven commodities or bounce back for guys in the bullpen. Obviously, we'd like to see Diaz coming back at full strength. I'd like to see, I was hoping, when we talked about this in the past, that he got into a winter league or something like that and have some at-bats, but getting him in games and getting him seeing hitters as soon as possible. But I think that the main guys and then the 3 DH guys or DH/outfielders and Marte, third baseman, Beatty and Vientos, are huge cogs into what's going to happen this year with the ball club.
Totally agree. I guess what I wrote about, and I guess I framed it poorly, I'm saying I expect, not that it's going to happen, I just hope and expect that the big guys that you brought up, the Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, have what we expect. The X factor, and you touched upon it, and I agree with all of them. Even DJ Stewart is one that I did not write about. Very big X factor, because we saw how big of a
He can be
power surge he had last year, and the power that he possesses that could change things. So I didn't have that one written down, obviously, in my head. Yes, we'll see how the playing time, is varied between him and like a Vientos at DH and a Marte in right field. But what I wrote down here and what I wrote in the article in the newsletter, again, Linktree in bio on our social media platforms, I had Vientos, McNeil, Marte, and Severino. Those were my 4. And real quick, we've talked about it, but for the listeners and everyone watching, obviously Vientos is given the keys now to have that DH role. And he's 24 years old. We've seen immense power from him at times. And I've said it before, small sample size, but he tears up AAA. And now it's his time to show what he can do in MLB. Because last year he was given a play a day, sit for 3, play a day. We talked about it. You can't get into rhythm.
It's hard, very hard.
That will change this year. And so hopefully, he had those at-bats that were consistent in September, and obviously results were better. So
Did
Vientos,
he play winter ball? Do
no,
we know if he played winter ball?
He didn't.
Wow.
No. The only ones that I know that played winter ball, Mauricio, who tore his knee up, out for the year,
right.
Which affects third base and Beatty and Vientos, and Joey Wendell will be there as well. And then obviously Marte played winter ball.
And did Alvarez play at all? He didn't
No.
go down. I bet he didn't play at all, huh?
Nah, just.
Wow, it's usually like I know, like we've talked about this before. Usually the Venezuelan players, and Dominican players, for all of them really, because I played in all. Like when they first get their taste of the major leagues, they kind of go back and will play for their right away, play for their team, and just get the accolades and get the love from the fans, and also give the local team a little bit of a boost. That hey, we've got the new major leaguer back. So it's interesting that he didn't play, but you know what? He played more innings than I guess he'd ever played, so probably a rest was well warranted.
That's exactly why I think so as well.
Yeah.
Also, he's very active, I guess I would use the word active, on Instagram. And he always posts his workouts.
Him working. Yeah.
And he, you could frame it any which way you want, but he worked hard this offseason.
Hey, he's a hardworking kid. I'm not taking anything. I mean, I have my qualms as a former pitcher with his catching style, but I will never take away that kid's passion and that guy's work ethic. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I saw this week that pitchers and catchers reported, it was weird, and awesome at the same time. Him and Kevin Parada, who's a younger catcher, or actually he's older than Alvarez, but
Right.
just drafted a couple of years ago as a catcher. You see Alvarez actually kind of mentoring him, which is awesome to see, you know? And Alvarez only has 1 year under his belt. So
I think Alvarez, he just relishes everything it is there is to be about being a professional baseball player and a Major League Baseball player, New York Met, and playing in New York. I think he relishes every moment of it.
I totally agree, and that I didn't put him on the list of X factors or the if factor. Only he obviously is, but I say that because he's kind of inferred like Pete and Nimmo and Lindor, where I just feel he's gonna have a very good season. You know,
I would
I do.
I would expect improvement from him. But the reason I say the big guys is because of the lack of star power that was signed this offseason. So the pressure does then go back on the star guys that you do have. And we've talked about this in length about Lindor with the way I feel about the strikeouts and the batting average. So for me, his improvement would be cut down on the strikeouts, improve the batting average, maintain the power numbers. And I think he's capable of doing that. Obviously, Pete, bring up the batting average a little bit. We'd like to see McNeil bring the batting average up a little bit. Nimmo, man, don't worry about hitting the ball over the fence so much. Let Pete and Alvarez hit the ball over the fence. Hopefully J.D. Stewart can hit the ball over the fence. But I think everybody has to kind of have their best foot forward and play as well as they possibly can for them to be the team that we hope for them to be.
Yeah, and I mean, every if has to go right because they're not constructed. And again, as Bill said, we've talked about this at length, but here we are at Showtime. You know, I had Marte as well. Obviously, has to have that. Let's say, give us 90%, 85% of what you did in 2022. I get he didn't play all of the second half last year. He had played only 6 games last year.
He was never healthy.
No. He played winter ball. He looks healthy. He's right now, as constructed, going to show up at camp, be right field. And if he stays healthy, I would assume he will get time off, half a day off, have DH, you know, help his legs and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think he brings a different, like, you know, Lindor has the swagger and Pete has the swagger. And I think
Marte,
he does too, but it's like a different manner. Like his is more of a little more of an edge to me, you know, than more of a little bit of a show. It's more like there's show, but there's a little bit of festivity in there as well.
I know what you mean.
With Marte.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, 2022 with Marte, big, huge year until he got hit in the hands in September and missed all of that month.
Ruined the season.
It really did. But he looks healthy. In my opinion, he was the glue of that 22 lineup. So give us 85% of 2022, and I get you're older, and I get you're coming off major injuries 2 years prior now. But if we get 85 of 2022, I think we'll be okay with Marte. Big if.
And he's a threat on the bases, you know, steals bases. Just a great defensive player, good arm, good bat.
Yeah.
Takes walks, good player.
He was actually stealing bases before he, you know, whatever the injury that he was out, that they never really, the groin that he had surgery on in the offseason.
Yep. And it'll probably take a year, you know, it probably takes a year. You're feeling all right and ready to play at 6 months or whatever, but to say you're really, really good, it's probably a year.
Yeah, and he was stealing like I just said, he was stealing bases early on last year at will, you know. So hopefully we see that again. Real quick, it doesn't need to go in depth here. We've talked about it. Most Met fans know this. If we could get Jeff McNeil back of 2022, where he literally won the batting title, he hit three off the top of my head, 326, won the batting title last year, 270. You know, and OPS obviously dropped huge. If we could get 85%, I'll use that number again, 90%, because we need McNeil.
I'll take 300.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Chavez being back as the voice in the hitter's ears is going to make a difference, because the team, and I got nothing against any coach or anything, but the team was a different team approach-wise last year than they were the previous year. Yeah. So I'm hoping Chavez, who was a very good hitter, who could hit home runs, but could hit the ball where it needed to be hit, when it needed to be hit in that spot, can get back in these guys' ears. And obviously the reasons for them not keep him as his coach because they were afraid he was going to leave as a manager. But I think things are back in place where he kind of needs to be.
Yeah. You bring up Chavez. He is. It's weird how his tenure is gone. Came in as the hitting coach in 2022. Last year he was the bench coach, and they kept Jeremy Barnes. That's why they made the move, because other teams wanted the assistant hitting coach Jeremy Barnes. So this year, John Gibbons, the former Blue Jays manager, is now the bench coach. Chavez back to what you just alluded to, hitting coach, and they kept Jeremy Barnes and made up a position as co-hitting coach or whatever, So
there's a lot of coaching staff positions nowadays that were not coaching staff positions
right.
when I played. That's for sure.
Yeah,
quality control coach.
You're right, exactly. The last one, and then we'll move on. And I want your take on this because it's a pitcher. Luis Severino is a big if for me. Obviously, like Diaz is a big if. Jorge Lopez, big if. But I'm looking at the bigger ifs. Luis Severino signed 1 year, $13 million. Can't stay healthy. 45 starts in the last 5 years, all with the Yankees. Has had success with the Yankees in New York, but again, long time ago, coming off an awful year. But here he is, still young. I think he's only 29. He has a lot to prove. It's already a walk year, 1 year deal, no opt out. If he can have, again, I keep saying if, a good year, I don't even know what that means because it hasn't happened in a while. That could change the entire dynamic of the Mets rotation with a Manaya and a Senga and a Quintana. So I look at him, Severino, as a huge if.
Yeah, you hope for the best. I wish I was allowed to pitch at some of the numbers that he's been allowed to pitch at and continue to pitch in the major leagues. I know anytime my ERA was creeping up at 5 and that I was on a plane or on a bus to somewhere in the minor leagues. But with that being said, he's obviously shown flashes throughout his career that he can be, I'm not going to say a number one, but right up close at times, to be in one of the, a top of a staff guy. So he's obviously getting a little older, but still under 30.
Yep.
As fans, we've got to hope for the best and root for the best, and try to stay positive with him, because if we get negative with him right away after a poor outing in spring training and all that, that just adds pressure. And I know that they're pro baseball players and they should be able to handle anything, but as human beings, we know the pressure, we feel the pressure, and we all are hoping for a nice bounce back and a successful. And that would be a great story too, where he comes across town and can turn his career around a little bit.
I actually just have to write down a couple things because you hit a lot of things that I want to touch on, and that always happens here on our podcast.
Sorry.
No, it's great. About Severino, still under 30. Like I said, he's 29. But you were talking about how you would, in the earlier generation, if you have an ERA over 5, you're on a plane,
You're out of here.
Dude, he had a 6-something ERA last year. It was the worst ERA for qualified starters. He got $13 million this year. So the Mets see something that a lot of, I don't, but I'm not in the front office. So I get it. Also, how big is this? You're a big facial hair guy, obviously. Growing up, you had the sideburns and the goatee, when you were at the Mets, get the beard now. All the former Yankees who have signed on with other teams, including Severino, they've all grown their beards back. How big is that for a big leaguer to feel free and do what you want, beard-wise?
You know what? I know it sounds silly.
It's not.
It's not. It is. It's not. And I actually remember getting in contact with Lance Johnson during the offseason, One Dog, years ago, when there was a brief talk by the guy that was a manager at the time. We're not going to put any names out or put anybody under the bus, because that's not what this story's about, actually, about changing facial hair policy. And I was up in arms about it, obviously, because like you said, it was a big part of your persona. And as you can tell by the people that do leave the Yankees, it's a part of their persona, and they like to have the facial hair. I don't judge people one way or the other with facial hair. I would hope that people wouldn't judge me one way or the other with facial hair either. I think as long as it's, well kept, you're not growing a crazy, ridiculously long beard like some of the Phillies guys are, and they let, do whatever you want. But that's not my thing. But it is a thing for athletes. I don't know if it's like Solomon's hair or whatever, King Solomon's hair or whatever it is. But, the guys that enjoy the facial hair do enjoy the facial hair.
Yeah, I think it's more of like I saw you see it on social media. Players are walking in to report from their cars to the door, and like I saw IKF, who was on the Yankees, no facial hair, grew out a beard. Severino, other guys, and it's like more of just like you could relax and be yourself kind of thing. Don't know how to describe it. You know what I'm talking about. I'm
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure listeners do. So I guess what I'm saying is I disagree with the Yankees bullshit, but that's just me. So.
Well, I guess there's one thing in baseball that out of all the things that have been tradition or whatever in baseball, there's one thing that's stuck because everything else is kind of flew right out the window pretty much.
Yeah. So I just brought up a couple of guys like IKF and Severino who have signed. A couple of things before we get into the mailbag. Here we are in the middle of February. Spring training, all 30 teams has started. All 30 teams, pitchers and catchers, have reported. And there are, I'm going to read you these names. Here are the bigger names that are available. And keep this in mind, there's still over 100 free agents available. But the bigger names that are unsigned as of when pitchers and catchers have reported. Ready? Cody Bellinger, the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, J.D. Martinez, Brandon Belt, Mike Clevenger, Tommy Pham, Whit Merrifield, Adam Duvall, Tim Anderson. All don't have a home or a team right now. What in the world?
Did Rosario sign?
No.
Ahmed, has he?
No.
Right. There's another. I mean, listen, that guy's been pretty good the last couple of years,
Right. I just didn't write him down because he doesn't, but no, he's a free agent.
I mean, he's not as some of those other names, but again, this is another solid player out there that it's really bizarre.
A lot of these guys have Boris as their, agent. So he's still holding out, but it's a question I'm going to ask you and to the listeners if you want to comment on our YouTube page at Shea Hello Media. Subscribe as well. We really appreciate it. It's February. As a former player and just as a human being, and you're looking for a contract of 5 to 7 years, some of these guys, you kind of want to know where you're going to be, and you got to get acclimated for the 2024 season. Like, this is unheard of. I understand a Bryce Harper once signed late with the Phillies, but for all these guys, I mean, we're talking dozens. It's unheard of. People have families. People have, kids.
Yeah. I would say this: the fortunate thing that those names have going for them is that the money is still going to be right to where they're not going to have to worry about whether they can eat today or tomorrow or in 2 months. But with that being said, being successful on the baseball field has a lot to do with comfortability, which we just kind of talked about a little bit with the beard. I know how silly it sounds, or the facial hair, but your surroundings, your teammates, you're getting to know the front office, getting to know the training staff, you want to kind of know these things and start to get things going. I mean, we've talked about it before. This is beyond bizarre. At some point in time, you have to start questioning, is Boris really getting something done for you?
Right.
I mean, what exactly is he doing? If you haven't, or what? I mean, I know that the market was broken.
Yep.
And I think that it was a terrible thing that it was completely broken the way that it was broken. But at some point in time, as a player, you got to get on with business, and we got to make it happen. I mean, what is the difference in the money that these guys are looking for, or what are the teams doing holding them hostage by not offering that kind of money? What's the difference? I don't know. This is very bizarre.
Jorge Soler signed a couple days ago. That's why he's not on this list. But he was another guy. He got 3 years with the Giants for 60 whatever million. But that was a staring contest between the Giants and Soler, who wanted 3 years. So
who blinked?
The Giants. They gave him the 3 years.
They gave him, for a guy that struck out more than once a game. I mean, look, we've talked about it before. He gets hot and he can, he can lead a league. He can lead a league in home runs like he did. But so they blinked. Yeah, they gave him a lot of money.
So it just brings up all the guys that I mentioned, and obviously there's 50 to 100 others, like you said, of Rosario, Ahmed, former Met. Like, you got to get acclimated. You got to get in shape. I know they're staying in shape,
But there's nothing like on the field shape. There's nothing like it.
And as a former player and just anyone with common sense, you want to get to know your teammates. You want to get acclimated with the coaching staff and trainers. For all these guys, spring training has literally started. I never thought that we'd be here, but here we are. So
Yeah.
crazy.
Thanks a lot, Dodgers.
Yep. Yamamoto, cough, cough.
It's a lot of money.
It is. Trust me, we spent too much time on Yamamoto.
Yeah.
So let's move on real quick. I don't want to make this a big story because it really isn't. And then we'll get into the mailbag, but I'd be remiss not to just touch upon it with Billy Eppler. And finally, Major League Baseball came down on what the penalty was for Eppler being suspended, and ultimately what the punishment is he's out for the 2024 season. Which is fine, I'm sure, by him because he didn't have a job.
He didn't have a job anyway.
Whether he resigned over this or something else, I think there's more to the story. The punishment, he can't do anything in 2024. He's reinstated in 2025. He's paid. He doesn't lose any money. He's still getting paid money for this year and next year by Steve Cohen. So he could sit on his couch and go crazy. But the question is, the reason that the investigation and why he was suspended and ultimately now ineligible to be in MLB is for manipulation of the IL, or what they would say the phantom IL.
Yeah.
And I sent you a quote by Tommy Hunter. I'm sure some listeners have said other players have come out in Epler's defense. Every team does it. It seems as though the Mets were kind of singled out because you don't hear this about any of the 29 other teams, but they do it. But maybe Eppler did it a lot and so much that it was like a mole on his face. Or maybe someone just snitched on him and gave a lot of information. I don't know. I just want your thoughts on it because it is bizarre.
I'll say this. In my big league career, which was a little over 4.5 seasons or 4 years over 7 seasons. So, because I was up and down quite a bit. I never was put on a phantom DL and never saw it myself. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I will say this. I did see it happen at the minor league level where we had maybe we needed a starting pitcher or something. So you had to put somebody on the 10-day IL. What do they call it now? What is it called now?
IL.
Is it the IL now?
Injured list, yeah.
Right.
Formerly DL.
Yes, I did see it in the minor leagues. I never saw it in the major leagues. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen because obviously people that are involved in the major leagues now are saying it does happen. I will say this, obviously, and we talked about this through text. It must have been egregious, and I will name 2 players last year that were kind of on that up and down train for quite a bit, and Thomas Nido and Guillorme, who I'm not even sure if they were ever really injured in the first place. So I don't know. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But I would say that maybe the egregiousness of it, and then maybe if you piss the wrong person off, like you said, maybe somebody just decided we were going to say something. You know how that goes. People are people.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to
unfortunate for him, but unfortunately he's getting paid.
Right, and he wasn't going to be part. Obviously, he resigned because of this, but you're right. He's getting paid. Mets did not lose a draft pick, so there's no penalty to the Mets. That was what everybody was worried about. Very odd. It just is. So we'll leave it at that.
Real quick, something I heard about draft picks that I thought about, like signing, let's say a Snell or something. Something we didn't even think about.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Yep.
Was the giving up compensatory? Is that the word?
Comp pick. If you offered a qualifying offer and they rejected it, when he signs with X team, that team is getting X. The Padres qualifying.
Would get the draft. Would you get
the draft pick,
which is
it's a
high pick.
It's a comp pick, so it falls in between like
first and second round.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that's something I don't think we brought that up, but that's another reason maybe that's keeping people away from.
It's
from
huge.
Some of these big names.
It is, and Blake Snell has that.
Yes.
Now, I should have great point by you. There is a date where it falls off, and I'm not sure exactly when that date is, and my computer is not open right now. But there is a date, and
what's funny
I'm sure go ahead.
What's funny about you saying that there's a date makes me wonder. I know we're getting off topic, but I'm gonna make this quick. It makes you wonder if the people that are running organizations are so disconnected with what it takes to be ready to play that they're willing to play that game to wait, and then say, oh, he's a former Cy Young Award winner. He'll run him right out there. He'll be ready. And he's saying he's ready, even though we know that spring training is spring training for 6 weeks for a reason. And that's to get you ready to play. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. You really don't want to give up that pick, but you're willing to take on and give hundreds of millions of dollars
To a
for
guy that might not be ready to play when it's time to play.
Exactly. I know where
Crazy.
I'm going with that, but yeah, it's a great point. I've thought about it. I got to figure out that date because that's a big thing. Because we've gotten to the point where what else could it be? You know,
We're racking our brains trying to figure it out.
It's the weirdest off season I can remember in quite some time.
And rightfully so, as we have the highest contract ever, and none of that money is being paid out until over the next 2 centuries. And another guy that's never pitched a day in the big leagues is getting $300 million. So I guess it kind of all kind of makes sense for this crazy off season.
It really has, and again, the off season is over, but we have all these free agents out there. So
crazy.
Moving on, the mailbag. As I say every Shay Hello podcast, and we talked about it with Doc Gooden last week, all the questions last week, obviously for the legend that he is, Doc Gooden. Back to normal business, Bill. It is our mailbag. More questions obviously go to the former MLB player and you, couple to me. We ask if you follow Shay_Hello on X, formerly Twitter. Over the weekend, we'll drop your questions here, and you can have a question read live, just like we're about to do right now, to either me or Bill. Bill, it's been a couple weeks since we did it our way. Obviously, Doc did not. Doc was great. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay. You're going to be shocked. I'm going to start with NYGI.
Who's that? Never heard of him.
Your boy. Ready?
All right. Yes,
Bill. Sir. Actually, keeps it short and sweet. Bill, what was your favorite and least favorite part of spring training?
Favorite part is obviously baseball starting again. You know, getting going again. You know, like it's the new year. It's the new year for baseball. So getting the season started, getting back with your teammates, and being out there and just doing the thing that you love. The worst part, obviously being up early in the morning, because as baseball players, most games are played at night during the season. So getting up early for 6 weeks straight, because even if you're a morning workout guy during the winter, it's usually, you're working out at 9 o'clock. You're not, showing up to the park at 7 a.m. I would say PFP and covering first base 8,000 times, but to be honest with you, I kind of enjoyed that. So I would say that the early rises is what kind of the worst part of spring training.
That actually is crazy, because I get what you're saying, that 95% of exhibition games are in the day. But then as we get into the regular season, it just switches right to night games. And it just it doesn't really make that much sense.
The thing I'm thinking is like spring training is maybe like vacation destination for people.
Yeah.
So they want to have their evenings maybe. So maybe we get the days, the games done during the day and that. And, I guess it's spring training is kind of like the lunchbox going to work, quote unquote, time of the year, so maybe, you work during the day, even though, and the entertainment's at night. And then once the season starts, you become the entertainment. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like, put your nose to the grindstone and work, and let's get to work. And we work during the day and we entertain at night.
Plus, guys are paid accordingly. They're professionals. So you know what? Okay, spring training is during the day. We got to flip the switch for the regular season. We can do it. I get it.
You do what you got to do.
Right.
You do what you got to do.
Okay. Thank you for the question, NYMGI. We will move to Jimmy Lags, who's been a big part of all this in our mailbags. He's got great questions. First, his only question, he goes, great interview with Doc. Not sure if you mentioned this before, and this is a question to you, Bill, by the way. Bill, do you remember the exact moment and where you were when you were called up to Major League Baseball? Where were you, your thoughts, your emotions, all that kind of stuff?
I'm not sure if we covered this or not, so I'll do it, obviously, because the gentle person, I'll say.
The masses want to know.
Yeah. Okay. My story is kind of funny, to be honest with you, because there's so much media in New York and WFAN and all of it's covered all the time during the season. And at the time, there was a lot of hype. My father-in-law lived on Long Island at the time, and I was playing in Norfolk at AAA. And he he was a listener, regular listener of the sports talk radio and that. And he actually called one morning. I want to say it must have been a Tuesday or a Thursday. I'm not sure. Tuesday or a Wednesday. But he called and said, "Hey, you're pitching Saturday against the Astros." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "No, you're pitching Saturday against the Astros. It's been announced." I'm like, "You got to be shitting me. I can't believe this." I mean, I was hoping to be called up soon, but I didn't expect my father-in-law. At the time, it was not my father-in-law. At the time, it was my girlfriend's father, my father-in-law now. So I knew that I was going to be pitching Saturday in the big leagues before I even went to the yard, Harbor Field in Norfolk, that day. So now here we go. It's getting time to go to the yard. I got to go to the yard and pretend like I don't know that I'm starting on Saturday against the Astros. And that's when I got to the yard and I got called in to the manager's office, and I had a phone call from Steve Phillips at the time to tell me congratulating me that I had made it to the getting called up and I was scheduled to pitch on Saturday. So I had to kind of, obviously still buzzing off of the fact that I'm going to be pitching in the major leagues, but had to kind of pretend like I was surprised again that I was finding this out. But the emotions, just pure joy and pure exhilaration to know that your dream is going to come to fruition and you're going to play for the team that you grew up rooting for. And, one of the best moments of my life to this very day.
Yeah. We definitely haven't discussed it because
You hadn't heard that?
No, I definitely would remember that because that's an awesome story. I mean, those are like bucket list moments of people's lives that
Absolutely.
don't even, to be in the majors is 1%, if less. You're part of that. And of course, you would remember where you are. The crazy thing is that you had to hide it when you got to the ballpark,
Yeah. I had to pretend like I hadn't heard I was getting called up to the big league.
That had to be really tough. But, I'm sure
believe me, I was beaming going to the yard that I knew it was going to happen. It was going to happen. I can't say finally going to happen because it was only a little over 3 years out of high school. But it's
but still.
since I was 4 years old, I was telling people I was going to play Major League Baseball. So obviously, it was a huge moment of my life and still one of the greatest times of my life.
Yeah, couldn't imagine. Great question as always, Jimmy Lags, because I didn't know that story. So thanks for asking, Jimmy, and thanks for sharing, Bill. We'll go one more question. It's from Jeff Cohen, who he does our mailbag, it seems like every week. He has his own podcast. Check it out, Baseball and Barbecue. I listen to it. Great podcast. He actually, thank you, Jeff. He includes me on this one. So he's got one for you and one for me. We'll start with you. He goes, Bill, can you give us some insight to how the team travels? Is there a dedicated charter for the plane? And how does it work with the borders for customs as like Canada? If you have any insight for that.
You know what? I remember reading this, actually. That's a great question because most people don't know about it. We go from the field to the buses. There's usually two team buses. Buses go right out to the tarmac and right onto the plane. It depends on the organization, whether it's like a chartered flight where it's just your airplane, or like, let's say with the Mets, they fly Delta. It's a chartered flight. Nobody else is on the flight besides the team.
Of course.
But it's not like when I played with Milwaukee, my second year in Milwaukee, we had the Bucks plane, and the Bucks had their own specific plane. So every seat in there was like a first class seat, and it was two seats, the whole plane. Right. Where, like, let's say with the Mets or like with the Red Sox, we had a Delta airplane, and it was a chartered flight, and you had your row. Everybody had a row to themselves, or if you wanted to sit with somebody so you could play cards or whatever. But obviously, you don't fly with commercial. You don't fly commercial. Right. And then you get right off on the tarmac. You go right to two more buses, and then off to the hotel. How does the TSA work? When you go into Canada, before you land, the flight attendants come by with documentation papers. You fill out the documentation papers. A gentleman from the TSA security will come through on the plane, actually collect all of the paperwork, ask you, do you have anything to declare? Obviously, it's no.
Right.
And then you get right off the plane and you go right Same thing. So
Okay.
yes, we do still have to do the documentation of coming in and out of the country, but that's all done on the airplane and not actually inside the airport.
Good question, Jeff.
Yeah, good
You
question.
know, yeah. He has one for me, and it's a good question. So I want to get. I know the answer for you, but the listeners don't. Jeff Cohen asks Casey, besides Shea Stadium and City Field, what is your favorite out of town ballpark? I like PNC Park, which is where the Pittsburgh, where the Pirates play.
Yep.
I know your answer because we've talked about it. I don't know if it was on the podcast or off. I don't know if you know my answer, but I'm going to answer Jeff's question right now. Wrigley Field for me. And I say that as a fan, not as a player, because I know for a fact you don't like Wrigley, because we've talked about this.
Yep.
But to answer his question, as a fan, and I've been to over 20 ballparks, like Major League, over my lifetime. And my bucket list, one of my things to check off is to go to all of them. I got a long way to do that, but Wrigley Field, and short and sweet. You walk in there, I felt like I was in a video game. The ivy right there on the wall, outfield wall, it felt like you could touch it. It's such a small ballpark, as you know, pitching there. I just fell in love with it, and everyone was friendly outside the ballpark. It's a great community for restaurants and stuff.
Oh yeah,
and
Wrigleyville is great.
So
the park, I don't know.
right. So for me, Wrigley Field. I want to ask you as well. I'm sure the listeners are wondering. You could do it as a player or a fan or both. Up to you, buddy.
Well, I've always liked two parks one aesthetics,
Right.
and that was Coors Field. Coors Field was just a beautiful, beautiful stadium, and the nature, the rocks and the
Rocky Mountains, right there. Yeah.
Well, even just inside the stadium where they have the trees and the rock fountains and all that inside the stadium. It's a beautiful park. It really is a beautiful park. And then two, I think we Fenway Park, even though, like I said, when I played there, the amenities were not great, but the whole vibe inside the stadium was always just a lot of fun.
What's funny about Fenway Park, and I've been there, and I've also been to Coors Field. Fenway Park was too cramped for me as a fan. I felt like all the seats were on top.
It is as a fan, yes. I've been there as a fan. You're right. In the seats, it is a smaller. Yeah, and they have some of those crazy seats where you have an I-beam in front of you or something like that.
Like the pesky pole. And
then it's just history too. It's history. Yeah. Obviously, Wrigley is history too. Mine more goes from, and we talked about this with Wrigley, and it's more about the personal experiences that I had at Wrigley. I'm sure as a fan, it's awesome to say you've been to Wrigley because of, once again, history. Absolutely.
Yeah, Wrigley, for me, obviously all fans. For you, I get why you are, you have your thoughts because you were there as a fan and as a player. So really quick story on my end before we get into quick pitches, which I'm excited because we didn't get to do it last week. But you brought up Coors Field. Obviously, Coors Field is above elevation or elevation. They have it marked, I think, on a purple seat where it is.
Seats. It goes all the way around the whole stadium. A whole line is purple seats.
So my first time there, I met a buddy who lives in Denver. He was working, and my flight got in at like noon in Mountain Time, I guess it is there, and of course. And I had to kill a couple hours after before he got off of work. Rockies had a day game, so bought a cheap ass ticket, upper deck, and was waiting for my friend. It was a vacation for me. Had a couple beers. 2 beers in, I am drunk as a skunk, and I'm like, what in the world? Like 2 beers? And again, I'm younger, so I wasn't, and my friend didn't tell me. Now, obviously, I'm older and I know all about it, but the elevation affects everything.
Everything.
So my 2 beers was for the elevation that I was at, sitting in the upper deck, was basically the equivalent if I had 10 beers in a short amount of time.
That'll do it.
I was plastered, man. It wasn't on purpose,
I tell you this, and we'll do it quick. When you do go to Colorado and let's say as pitchers, we do a lot of running. You can definitely feel the difference in the running. And even let's say you're sitting in the upper deck.
Yeah, I'm just sitting.
Climbing the stairs itself, you can definitely feel the difference in the altitude.
Yeah. But I love Coors Field.
It's a beautiful stadium. Beautiful stadium.
Yeah. And just like they have a whole outside the ballpark where you could park, drink in restaurants and and it's beautiful. So
well, it had a lot
totally.
to do. That area had a lot to do with kind of like the craft beer explosion around the
Yeah.
country. Was that area? So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Went to Breckenridge, brewery up there. So if you're a fan of the weather changing every day and beer and a lot of outdoorsy kind of stuff, Denver's for you. And if
Good
you're a
stuff.
baseball fan, check Coors Field out. Great ballpark.
Absolutely.
Let's get into quick pitches as we wrap this baby up.
All right.
We didn't get to do it with Doc last week, but we're right back at it. If you're new to the podcast, every week with Bill and I ask Bill 3 or 4 questions, usually 3, and depending on how it goes, maybe 4. He doesn't know the questions that are coming. They don't necessarily have to do with baseball. Some do, some aren't, and we go right into rapid fire. You ready, Bill?
I'm ready.
All right. Bill, if you had a pet parrot, what would you teach it to say?
Oh.
They
Well,
pick
obviously,
up.
you'd have to have the classic is Polly Want a Cracker. That would be, you'd have to have that. And
I guess
I hate to say this, but I'm going to be real honest.
Okay.
Probably fuck you.
I love that answer.
Yeah. Or motherfucker.
See, that's the point of quick pitches, because we want the honest answers, and I would do the same thing.
Yeah. Those are probably Polly Wants a Cracker, fuck you, and motherfucker.
Yeah. How funny would that be?
It would be hilarious.
You got a friend? Yeah. And I'm sure the listeners out there, they would agree. Like, think about it. You have a couple buddies over for, a game or whatever. They don't even know you have a parrot, and you train the parrot to say, fuck you.
Yeah.
And imagine how that night would go.
It would, yep.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Second question. Do you have a favorite line from any movie that sticks out in your head? A line, a quote.
I mean, there's so many of them. There's so many that I could go with. But, I mean, I'll give you really one from maybe my growing up years that I absolutely loved, and that's she don't even have a license, Lisa. That's a weird science. It's actually, he doesn't even have a license, Lisa. You're a little young for weird science.
I've heard of it. Okay.
This is for those that are of age. That's a good one, and that's Michael Anthony Hall, who delivered the line.
Yep.
Obviously, we can go real simple with "Say hello to my little friend."
Al Pacino,
everybody loves that, and
there's a lot.
There's so many. I mean, so you're saying there's a chance? That would be a good one. Or
Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
But he don't even have a license, Lisa. That's, if the people of age that are watching, they know.
They'll if you know, you know. Weird science, that quote.
Yep.
Okay. Depending on your answer on this, this could be our last one, or I got another one lined up for you, all right?
All right.
The most random fact off the top of your head that you know. A random fact that is obscure that you could just be like, hey, kind of like Jerry Maguire in the Human Head Ways, something like that.
The latitudinal line of the Great Pyramid of Giza is the exact same numbers as the speed of light.
Wow.
Look it up.
I'll take your word for it. Oh, wow.
I challenge our listeners and challenge you to look it up. The latitudinal line of the Great Pyramid of Giza and the speed of light are the exact same numbers.
That's a great one. I love it. That's definitely a random fact. I'll look it up.
You didn't think you were hearing that?
No, and that's why I'm not going to ask the next question, because that's a great
Come on,
answer.
don't make me do another one.
No, not after that. I just wanted to chime in on a random fact because I think it's baseball related. I think, and I don't know if you probably know it. I'm not sure. But I want our listeners to know it. Stan Musial, the great St. Louis Cardinal Hall of Famer.
I've had the pleasure of meeting him before he passed. May he rest in peace.
I've heard great stories about him as a person.
Loved to play the harmonica.
I didn't know that. There's another random fact.
Random fact.
I think he was like a lifetime 330 hitter or something.
Tremendous baseball player. They didn't call him the man for no reason.
Right. So my random fact is Stan Musial. He had 3,630 career hits in his career. The random fact, he had exactly half of that hit on the road and away, a road and home.
Wow.
1,815 hits away and 1,815 hits at home. Literally half of his 3630 career hits. That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's got to be the only guy of probably the only guy at anything, but definitely the only guy of 3,000 hits that's dead right down the middle, 50-50.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a guy that had 2 career hits and maybe one on the road, one at home, but
yeah, I guess that's true.
But for 3,600 hits,
That's
hello.
insane.
So yeah, I think we're going to wrap up the quick pitches on that because you gave a great answer. I'm going to look that up.
Look it up.
And that's going to wrap up episode number 25 already. Everybody listening and watching or both, please like, share, and subscribe. And it was back to business as usual, Bill, you and me. We won't announce our guest coming up, but again, let me just reiterate, subscribe, because when we do announce the guest, the first 350 subscribers to our YouTube channel will get the first crack at answering a question, just like we did with Doc Gooden. We're around 290 subscribers right now. So get on that. Say Hello Media on YouTube. We're available. Please follow us. Drop a comment and a like on any platform. We're there. Say Hello Podcast. Any final words, Bill? It was good to have just you and me back in our little intimate setting without, the legend. And that was awesome, Doc Gooden.
Yeah. No, just a good show again. Thanks for the questions to the fans. Thanks for the questions, Casey. And let's go Mets.
Baseball is back. For Stephen White, Bill Pulsifer, I'm Casey Lynn saying so long until the next Say Hello Podcast.